Welcome to another episode of Fight the Burnout. Today we have Jen. She is living currently over in the US, in LA, and she's kind of similar to me, into fitness, into bettering your mindset, bettering your body, having a well-rounded, better version of yourself from wherever you are. But we met just recently she just asked if she could come onto the podcast, and like always, we never say no. And yeah, so Jen, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your backstory, kind of, upbringing, and maybe even a few experiences with burnout.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Chris. Hi guys, I'm Jen Cui. I'm a holistic health coach as well as a certified personal trainer and certified nutrition coach. I am currently based in Los Angeles, like Chris said. And so I wanted to come on here to kind of share my experience with burnout, with PTSD, and my healing journey to kind of help you guys and also give you some tips, perhaps, and insights that I gained from my own healing journey and my clients' healing journeys to see if it can help you guys with your recovery from burnout. So for me, burnout was something that I experienced very early on, probably like as early as middle or elementary school, like fifth grade, and then into middle school, and obviously continued out very badly through high school and into college. So I was raised by two Chinese immigrant parents in Detroit, Michigan. And as most people know, with Asian culture, schoolwork, high achieving, like that whole mindset is very honed in and harped on throughout life. So that's kind of where a lot of my perfectionism anxiety kind of started. And it wasn't something I necessarily realized until fifth grade, where I had like my first suicidal ideation. And that was something that, I really struggled with. And I don't know if you guys need trigger warnings, but trigger warning, like this
Yeah,
whole episode,
yeah,
this
yeah.
whole podcast, right?
It's most podcasts of some sort. There's probably going to be some sort of trigger somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. So I had an interesting segue into it though. It wasn't like just from schoolwork, and I wasn't like, oh, I need to be top of my class, and that's why I was facing burnout and having this depression and suicidal ideation. It was actually from being an athlete. So I was a golfer, and I had golfed since when I was like 8, competed ever since I was 10, and I always competed in the group that was ahead of me. So I would be competing with like 14 to 16-year-olds when I was like 10 to 12, you know? And that was just something that my mom like put me into. And I hated golf. I never wanted to play golf. It was something that my older sister was really interested in because my dad had played. And so naturally, as the younger sibling, I was just tossed into it. And unfortunately, I was actually like decent at golf. I was pretty good. So it makes it even harder to stop. Um, and so it was a struggle because mentally and physically, it takes such a big toll on you. Like so many people who have played golf or have experience with it know that it's so much of a mental game. And for me, coming from this background of like, being a high achiever, being a perfectionist, and having my mom be so like adamant on you must be the best. And anytime I didn't perform well, anytime I didn't end up like number one or number two, it was just like I would hear about it for the week, right? And then I'd be back at practice and all this stuff. So I had very early on become depressed, really associated like parental love and acceptance, right, to my achievement and my work, uh, going totally against everything that I wanted mentally and physically, right? Like it was something that I was forced into, and something that I couldn't just simply be like, all right, I'm just gonna quit, because there's so much more kind of behind the scenes issues that would have occurred, right? Like it's like almost like trying to leave a job where you're like, I really don't want to be here, but like, what else am I gonna do, right? Like this pays the bills, kind
Yeah, it pays the bills.
of
I'm getting paid
thing.
well. I'm getting paid well. It'll be, yeah. It's almost exactly the same. It's like when
Yeah,
you're halfway decent at something, but you actually really hate it.
yeah, yes,
Can be difficult to get out of
exactly,
it.
exactly. So that started probably in fifth grade, and then all went all the way through the end of high school for me. And it was a struggle because on top of that, like in middle school, I started to face more challenges with feelings of like issues with self-esteem, with confidence, and depression because of puberty, me being a female,
Oh,
being exposed to media and everything. I was like, oh my gosh, my hips are getting bigger. What the heck? I'm so fat now. I need to go lose weight. And I started calorie counting when I was freaking 12 years old. Can you imagine?
oh,
12 years old, I was starting calorie counting. I was like, I'm so fat, like no one's gonna like me. I was a cheerleader in middle school for like 2 years, and that I was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm so fat that I'm like a base, which for any guys who don't know, the base is like the two people who are on the bottom who like throw the flyer, the person who goes into the air up. And so if you're not a flyer, you feel like you're fat and like heavy because you're not light enough to be thrown into the air and do all the cool
yeah.
tricks, right?
But really you're heavier because you're stronger and you're actually throwing people.
Yeah, exactly. And you're also like freaking 12. Like you
Yeah.
have so much more development to go. I was not fat at all. I was totally fine. But, I was already a perfectionist, already so pent up, so high strung all the time that it was just like naturally something that would have come up. And so in high school then I started to see a significant drop in my mental health, like exponential drop in my mental health. I was so extremely depressed, anxious, and had like heaps of suicidal ideations, like day in, day out. I think like in terms of like the school system, the transition between middle school and high school was so steep for me, that I really like just didn't know how to deal with anything. And I think what made it worse was you have the option to take AP classes. I'm not
Yeah.
sure how it is there in like New Zealand and
And
Australia and stuff, but
yeah, it's
yeah.
it's it's similar. I did high school in via correspondence sailing around the world, so
Mm.
so
Oh, got it.
that's similar to the U.S. I had stuff. Mine was through University of Missouri, so it
Oh,
was
got it.
kind of it was similar. I have the same as you, but yeah, it is similar here. There's always that ability to be able to do the next level up, and
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, like a lot of my friends from other schools, like private schools, were doing IB, right? The International Baccalaureate or
yeah,
whatever. So IB, AP classes, similar things. Like you can take college courses for like in high school to hopefully not have to take those classes later and save a bunch of money.
yeah,
So because of that pressure, you're like, holy shit, I have to take like all AP classes, right? And everyone's like competes about it. And I think one of the biggest issues I see in the whole world of like stress, burnout, hardworking achievers, perfectioners, whatever, is that they wear burnout, they wear like all of these tasks that they have to do as like a badge of honor. Like people brag about not having enough sleep and like not, having to have 4 cups of coffee a day. They brag about how they haven't taken care of themselves well. And
yeah.
like that's like a good thing.
I saw a post. I don't know. It was a couple months ago. You should not be
Mhm.
proud of being busy. You should
Yeah,
be
you
proud
really
of not
shouldn't.
being busy, because if
Yeah.
you're busy, it means that you don't actually have your shit sorted out. You're not. You should be proud of not being busy. Um,
Yeah.
wow. So a lot of things, and then obviously you add the Asian culture in onto there as well, and you need to be
Mhm.
getting straight A's in any classes that you're doing. So I can only imagine. So real quick
Yeah.
before we carry on,
Mhm.
what is it that you actually would define burnout as for yourself?
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, I think I don't know if I can necessarily define burnout itself, but I can define like the symptoms that you would get.
Like
But I
for
think
me, for example, I believe that everybody has different meanings to burnout. I don't think that there's
mhm.
actually a one definition of burnout,
Yeah.
because everybody feels it in different ways. Some it could be
Mhm.
depression, some it could just be that I'm tired, some it could be mentally drained,
Mm.
physically, some's physically drained. But there's always I believe that we all have our own version of it, that we go, fuck, I'm getting burned out again, or I'm
Yeah,
starting to feel
yeah,
that way that I did at whatever your rock bottom is at that time. So that's
for
what I mean
sure.
by, because I know everybody does. That's why I asked this question, so we get a,
Mhm.
a leveling field of where where everybody
Yeah.
sits at. So through the rest of the conversation, we kind of have an idea. So what would you
Yeah.
say for you? like your experience or the experiences that you have would define as burnout?
Mhm. Yeah, so I think burnout is the highest level of stress that you can experience. So if I think of stress as like a vertical ladder, right? The first couple rings would be like eustress. So eustress and distress, the difference between that is eustress is actually good stress, is things that can motivate you, something like a simple deadline or timeline so that you can actually be productive. And then it gets into distress after that, right? So when you get too much stress where you can't be as productive, you're anxious, you start to, be on edge, you're more moody, you have mood swings, all this stuff. And then I think the highest level of stress would be burnout, where you are so stressed to the point where you cannot be productive. It is so difficult to focus, you're emotionally drained. It's similar symptoms to like depression, where you don't feel like doing anything, you don't want to, um you like nothing excites you anymore. And when you go to try to do work, you physically, mentally cannot. And at that level, like a lot of people can experience like panic attacks, they experience immense visceral feelings of like lack of self-worth, confidence, all these things. And it's something that, especially for people who experience burnout chronically, they're high achievers, they're perfectionists, they are people who will get themselves to that point so often and not realize that like this is a toxic cycle that they can break out of, and the only way to break out of it is to do nothing, is to like just allow yourself to like take self-care. But obviously the people who are always burnt out aren't the people who are practicing self-care.
Yeah, they're high achievers. They want to perform extremely well, perfectionists,
Hmm.
and in turn it turns into anti-achievers, anti-performance, and
Yes.
and anti-perfection because you can't actually get anything done. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So Jen,
um
obviously you've gone through a lot of different stuff. I was having a read of like on your website, your
mhm.
bio and that, and you've got a lot of different things. Obviously, like you've already talked about today, being a high achiever, being pushed to be a high achiever in golf, then high school cheerleading. I've watched. I've got friends that were cheerleaders in high school as well that I used to go see, and that I'm like, yeah. And then now and I was a teenager at the same time with them. And now looking back, I'm like, wow. And then there's a few shows obviously about it and that.
Mhm.
But so what is it that you believe, like obviously looking back at your teenage
Mhm.
self, we learned from everything that we went through. So you wouldn't be who you are today if you didn't have the experience.
Yeah, a hundred
We
percent.
love our past, but at the same time, what is it that you believe could have helped prevent or overcome that burnout, or and what do you do now? So kind of two.
Yeah. Yeah, so the first part of what could have prevented it, definitely education. So, like, having people actually talk about it in school would have been so important. Having teachers that were like there for you, who were able to check in. But from a personal level of like what I could have done was really like learn to be more in touch with like my own feelings and stay true to myself.
Yeah.
Right. So that's something I think very difficult for children to learn, is like, how do you advocate for yourself when you're a child and everyone in this world looks at you as a child? You're an adolescent, you're not someone who can make your own decisions, right? So I think that whole mentality is a cultural shift that people need to change. And I think with social media, especially like TikTok, so many people in like Gen Z who are under 18 are being voices for themselves, are advocating for themselves, are spreading really great messages about mental health and awareness. But that's just something I wish like would have existed. And I think also understanding your non-negotiables. So even as a kid or a high school student or college student, understanding what is a non-negotiable for yourself, the things that you need to do no matter what happens, whether that is you're someone who knows that you need 9 hours of sleep a night, right? Or maybe you don't need as much sleep, maybe you can get by with 6 or 7 hours of sleep a night, but knowing that you need to exercise every day in order to feel grounded, right? But finding those little things throughout the day that make you be able to show up at 100%, that is really important. And I think that just starts with tuning into what brings you joy. It's as simple as that, like what makes you happy, seriously, and just doing more of it. I think
So
for
real
me a
quick,
big
sorry, I just want to
yeah,
pause there just for a second.
yeah.
So take for example, and because I know there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of kids, even
Hmm.
adults that will be in a
Hmm.
similar situation, like we talked about, with you and your golfing. It's the same thing as being
Yeah,
in a job where you absolutely hate your job, but you're like, I got to pay my bills.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
How would you voice that, or what would you do, like as a 5 6 year old 7 year old, when when you're in like fifth grade, and that when you're playing
Mhm.
golf and you absolutely recognize that you hate it, and your mom is like,
Yeah,
no, you're going to do, what do you do?
yeah. Okay, so that is a great question. I think it's super complex and it totally depends on the family dynamic that you have. Um, I I have to think about this. Let me okay. So looking back at it, right? I understand that at least for me, I'm lucky enough to have parents who like really do truly love me and care for me and want me to be happy and successful and all those things, right? Most parents who push their kids that much, or like in a certain degree, are just looking out for their future and want them to be successful, right? And their idea of success or happiness is like financial success or job, career success, whatever. So I think being able to stick to your guns is a really important lesson, like from early on, and just being able to say no, right? Learning to say no is extremely, extremely crucial
Yeah.
for children, especially. So, um, I think for myself, when I was at that age, it would have just been to literally like say no and quit, like literally just rebel.
It's I think
And
it's I think you had a good point there. It's a rebel, but it's also sitting down and having that, not rebelling in a way of, F the world.
yeah, yeah.
It's more of a actually rebelling and actually having that conversation with your parents from a heart place. I feel like a lot of kids, they struggle to get into that heart place. And
Mhm.
instead they're going from the head place of, nah, you know, it's the ball, and they start to attack the
Mhm.
parents. Whereas when you attack
Yeah.
anybody, everybody kind of goes. Whereas maybe as a kid, like
Yeah.
I know my parents were always like, do whatever, do what you want. They'd always put me into different things. But if I didn't
Mm.
enjoy it,
Mhm.
like there was some times where I really did enjoy things and they pulled me out of it because I
Mhm.
was doing shit, something that, like at schoolwork. But we had those
Yeah.
boundaries. But it's I believe it's that having that conversation from being that having that Asian family that has that stress put on them, because I know
Mhm.
I've got other friends that, same similar thing. As a parent, what do you reckon?
Oh, definitely just opening up like that conversation to like actually check in and like listen to your child.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example of like kind of what you were mentioning about rebelling, right? Like rebelling in a way where it's actually productive and not unproductive. So when I was in middle school, probably anywhere between like sixth or seventh grade, I found an interest in fencing,
Yeah.
totally off the like be like who starts fencing unless I don't know your parents fence maybe, but I was just like fascinated with fencing, and I was like, okay, hey mom and dad, like I really want to go try this out. My dad like was like totally like let's go, like he's super supportive of anything I want to do, and he was like all right, bought all the fencing equipment, started taking lessons. My mom on the other hand was like, this is going to distract you from golf and like you need to like be a better golfer. And so she refused to like support me in like my fencing journey. But my dad was like, you can do it if you want to do it. And I think for me to be able to like find the confidence in myself to like just keep going, regardless of like what my mom thought or like approved of or what anyone else thought, like if I wanted to do it, then I could just go do it. Right. Like I think um being able to bring up this kind of like alternative of like, no, I don't want to do this, but I do want to do this.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the issue of parents like pushing you to do an extracurricular that you might not be passionate about or even study a subject that you're not passionate about. A lot of the root of that is that they know that it's safe and that it's something that has that they're trying to protect you from like failure in a way, right? And so if you allow your child to experience quote unquote failure younger or just experience the the transition between going from something that they don't like to something they think they like, even if they decide that they want to drop that later, they have learned that lesson for themselves,
Yeah.
right? And they've learned kind of where their boundaries are. And that's extremely important for in the future with like something even as like relationships, to just learn your boundaries of like what you like, what you don't like, and know that it's okay and safe to say no and to leave and go try something else.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that, yeah, this definitely is very true. And there is obviously that fine line of just giving up on things because it's starting to get hard,
Hmm.
and going, and, and still pushing your kid, but then having that thing of, oh yeah, okay, I want to go, this isn't it. But like you said, you enjoyed fencing. I'm sure you got quite good at it because you enjoyed it so much and you actually were passionate about it.
Yeah, like I was super excited about it. I unfortunately was only able to like get through like one season of it. And then I was like, "Ah, I guess I'm just gonna golf because
Yeah.
like my mom
Because
will
you got
support me
the
in this."
pressure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I will say though, my partner, he has incredible parents who I've heard this from a lot of my American friends too, like that their parents were people who were like, yeah, you can choose what you want to do, but if you choose it, you stick with it
Yeah.
for however long time, right? So like if you wanted to do soccer for this year, right, you could sign up for soccer, they would do it. But if you decide midway through the season that you don't want to do anymore, they're like, no, you can't quit,
Yeah.
right? You committed to it, and so you can quit after this year, the season is up, but you committed to a season of it.
Yeah. No,
And I
I
think
think
that's a really healthy way. Yeah.
that's a real healthy way. Put boundaries on it from the very beginning, because yeah, I feel like at the, a lot of the times there isn't those boundaries. It's like, yeah, go try it. You don't like it, fall. And then so in turn,
Yeah.
you get this pattern of, oh, I can just try things and fail. And then you never actually get good or never get resilience to actually stick through things. And
Hmm.
sometimes you need those little pushes, like, with myself, with clients, training people to get into the police force, and that it's all about
Hmm.
resilience. It's all about building that foundation
Hmm.
to be a good, excellent cop for a long time, and not let the stresses hit you all the time. But
Hmm.
it's also sometimes they'll come to me and they're like, oh, Chris, I want to put the coaching on pause. And I'll be like, no, because you committed to something, you committed to it. Let's finish this 12 weeks and let's go strong.
Hmm.
What is really
Yeah.
going on? Why do you actually want to quit? Oh, it's getting hard.
Yeah.
I got time. I've got work. I've got this. Cool. Then
Hmm.
let's sit down and let's create a plan. But
Yes.
and pushing through those, because that's, as I call it, that's going to the next level. It's getting beyond where
Yeah.
you've actually ever been before. And it's really,
Hmm.
as a kid, I think that would be really important. Now, obviously, you've gone through a lot of different things. I know I've read, and you even, before we even did the interview, we were kind of talking about, you've gone through, like, obviously you went through university, all of that, had lots of burnout experiences, things that
Hmm.
kind of came up, the depression, the anxiety. So what do
Hmm.
you do now to help yourself prevent and overcome burnout?
Yes. Love this question. So after I hit rock bottom in college, I started to kind of put myself through my own little self care boot camp.
Yeah.
And I still, like, to this day, will take those strategies if I feel like I'm in a not so great place, but thankfully have developed good strategies. So the first thing I did was work on my mindset. Mindset's everything. That's something that I still continuously work on every day, like now, and I will for the rest of my life,
Yeah.
because mindset is definitely something that you have to keep, like, upkeep, right? It's something you have to maintain. It's just like going to the gym for your body, right? Like if you go to the gym and you see people who are like super jacked, they're not just jacked and then they leave the gym and don't come back for a year. They stay there. They're the ones who go there every single day. So similarly, your mind works the same way, where you have to keep yourself in that mental gym,
Yeah.
right? So personal development books, podcasts, affirmations, journaling, meditation, all of these tools. And so for me, it was just starting with affirmations, starting with positive psychology that felt really cringy to me, like seriously, seriously cringy. Like I could not say it in the mirror without thinking, oh, this feels so gross. Like, I am worthy, I am beautiful. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
and
It's,
for
I
people,
call it that demon. Like my business is called Knocking Demon, And it's because it's that demon. I'm not religious, but it's just what came to me when I was in my deepest, and it's like the demon, that freaking demon just he keeps telling me that it's that cringiness. It's that little voice in your head that says, why are you doing this? Don't do this. And it's because he doesn't want you to progress where you're beyond what he's saying or she's saying.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a really great point, because when you talk about setback recovery, when we talk about how do you get past post-traumatic stress and actually move to post-traumatic growth, there's 3 P's that go along with that. It's personalization, pervasiveness, and permanence. And so the personalization aspect is the belief that like you are bad or that you are unworthy. There's something wrong about you that is keeping you in this stress, right? But in able to grow from it, you have to create that separation between you and the stressor. So instead of saying things like, you know, my anxiety or I am depressed, right? Like I have depression, it would be like I experience depression. I experience, you know, anxious thoughts, all these things. So those are just small changes that I started to make in my day-to-day, just becoming more aware of my thoughts. Yeah. And like to this day, that's like something I will do. Like I'll catch myself when I spiral into like a victim mentality. I'm like, hey, Ashley, no, like what am I going to do about it, right? That's the difference between a victim and a creator. So to be the antithesis of a victim, you have to be able to see the opportunity. And
it's like the phrase, I'll try.
Yeah.
I don't let my client, I don't know about you, but I don't let my client say I'll try. I'm like, tell me you're going to do it or you're not. And then if you don't do it, okay, cool. Well, what actually happened there? And if you're not going to do it, well, tell me you're not going to do it, but don't try to do it, because instantly you set yourself for failure.
Yeah, 100%. And I think a good way to kind of get out of this mentality of like, I'm going to try, because that allows you to fail without repercussion, is instead to think of like, okay, if you say you're going to try to do something, what's your confidence level on actually following through? And if it's anything underneath a 7, ask yourself why, right? What's the difference between the 7 to 8 or the 5 to an 8? And see if you can reconcile that difference, right? If that difference is you need to wake up like an hour earlier, or you need to get one more form of support, say a friend, like then go do that. But being able to critically think about why is it that you can't move from try to do is like really important.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. What else do you do? What other things? Mindset obviously is a massive one.
Yeah, mindset, and then keeping up my physical fitness and like physical wellness is huge. So as a personal trainer and someone who's just like been active my whole life, if I'm not active, I feel terrible. Like literally I'm like quarantine has been awful, because I went from walking probably 7 miles a day, like all around LA and stuff, to sitting at home for like 7 hours a day, you know?
What do you do for movement now since you're quarantined?
So I have been teaching group fitness classes that are live online since beginning of quarantine, like since March of 2020. And so I started off teaching like just 3 days a week, and then moved up to 7 days a week, or sorry, 6 days a week. So I was literally teaching group exercise 6 days a week. And I was like, all right, this is good exercise. However, I will say like there's a big difference between just having purposeful, like intentional exercise for an hour a day and living a sedentary lifestyle, right? So I would still consider myself moderately sedentary, because that hour a day I'm working out, but the rest of the time it's like I'm kind of still at home. So I've been making myself go out for walks like a lot more often. I was starting off walking probably 3 days a week in like 2020, was trying to move it up to every day, just like could not get through it. And then 2021 came around, I was like, all right, really gonna be more intentional about this, start tracking it, and like getting my partner involved in it. So that's a big thing, is just being active. And then for nutrition, I am plant-based. I'm completely vegan. I have been for almost 5 years now. And that has significantly improved everything in my life. Like literally, I cannot think of one aspect of my life in terms of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health that has made me feel more aligned and alive than veganism has. It's something that is very closely tied to like my morals and my core values. And then also it physically makes me feel so much better. So I was having like tons of gut issues in the past. I was extremely bloated. I had a terrible relationship with food. Like, incredibly awful relationship with food, and veganism really helped me heal that as well. And even the mental health aspect, right? It just made me a lot more aligned with my values, which for anyone who struggles with depression and anxiety, I think a lot of times is because there's cognitive dissonance that's there, where you want to take care of yourself, but then your like actions say otherwise. And so very similarly here, it was just closing the gap.
Mm.
And that really helped me. Uh, Sleep was the other biggest thing.
Yes.
This is
Sleep is
probably like the most
massive.
common thing, but sleep is so incredibly important. I don't think I don't think college students, high school students, even like adults who are starting off their careers in their 20s and 30s realize how important sleep is. And that for me was a total game changer.
Yeah.
Everything changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, it's interesting, you said about movement. I just wanted to bring something up that stuck out that I think for viewers is real important. Movement does not necessarily have to be going to the gym. It can
Yeah.
be literally going for a walk, especially in these days with COVID right now. You're in isolation, you're quarantined. I know we did it for 4 weeks in the very beginning, like back in March. We had it again
Hmm.
semi in, when was it, October or something.
Hmm.
But it's getting out and just moving. Just because your normal anchor, your normal thing goes, doesn't mean that you have to, give up on all of it. So just get out there and move. Nutrition, like you said, is huge. What you put in your body is how you feel. It's like a car. You wouldn't put diesel into a petrol car, would you?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
you
A
know,
100%.
put what your body needs. For you, it's being, it's
Hmm.
doing plant-based everything. For me, I
Hmm.
love meat. If you took meat away from me, I would absolutely I'd kill somebody and eat them. Like it's
Yeah.
for me, it lights me up. But find those
Hmm.
things that your body likes and also you mentally like, and values. Like you said about values are one of the, especially for depression, anxiety, values is one of the biggest things. If you're
Hmm.
going against your values every single day with what you're doing, how you're acting, then subconsciously you're fighting yourself, and you're making yourself feel like you're not worthy. And then
Yeah.
said sleep. Oh, so many people don't sleep enough, and they're like, oh, why am I not performing? Well, how
Yeah.
tired are you?
Exactly. Exactly.
So
I love.
go ahead,
Mhm.
Jen.
Oh, I was just gonna say I love that you bring up like the values, because I was gonna say like with burnout, and like tools for self-care, like even how to recognize yourself. You need more self-care, right? It's like if you're seeing yourself say like, oh, I need to stop this habit, right? Or I need to sleep more, but I can't. I need to move more, but I don't have time. I need to start cooking for myself, but I don't have time. These are all things that increase the time that you're in a victim mentality, and actually develop this narrative that I cannot trust myself to give my body, my mind, and my spirit what I need. And that in itself is like a humongous issue that is the root of all these mindset challenges, I believe, because you have developed the habit of not trusting yourself. And when you cannot trust yourself, you cannot trust your body, you cannot perform.
You
Like,
can't, but
that's
then
it.
you also don't trust anybody else, because if you don't trust yourself, how can you trust somebody else? And so,
Yeah.
so in turn, it just reinforces it. So yes, values is one of the biggest things, and I've done my NLP master prac and that, and it's
Nice.
values is the massive thing in it, and it's one
Hmm.
of the biggest parts of the master section of it, because values and the rules around the values, like you
Hmm.
take depression, for example. Most people, it's really easy for them to meet depression. But if you
Hmm.
change the rule of what depression actually, how you meet depression, and you anchor that in, all of a sudden depression is actually quite hard to hit. Because you're not in a victim mentality anymore. You're constantly uplifting yourself. You're constantly, striving to not be there. It's, that's depression. Yes, people chemically, or it's easier for some people to hit it than others, but it is a choice. It is a state of mind. It is a decision
Hmm.
to stay in that, like you've said multiple times, the victim mentality of I am depressed, I am anxious, instead of,
Hmm.
yeah, I suffer from depression at times. We all do.
Yeah, yeah. I think there is an important barrier, or like a line to draw of like clinical depression and like what I think a lot of people will just say that they're depressed. But clinical depression is like seriously an imbalance of like hormone or chemicals in your brain, right? And so if you need something like medication, therapy, whatever, I think what it is the commitment to getting better,
Mm,
and not necessarily like mindset of like I'm just going to stay depressed because I want to be depressed. um I think it's the decision to get better, to
mm.
actually want to get better.
That
So
choice.
it might not, yeah, it's not like it's not your choice to maybe like have depression, but it is your choice of whether or not you want to put in the effort to get out of it.
Yeah, and if you want to, yeah, again, that choice. You either have the choice of staying like you are and staying in that, or the choice of getting better and learning to live with however it is that you're constantly in a better state. Because
Hmm. Hmm.
you can change your state instantly. It's like, it's like, um, there's been research and stuff around. I think it was University of Columbia did a Tony Robbins talks about it in one of his learnings that he does, and they actually took 30 clinically depressed people,
Hmm.
some on medication, some not, and had them for 30 days, I believe it was, for 30 minutes stand in front of a mirror and smile at themselves.
I
After
love
the
that.
after the 30 days, not one of them was still depressed,
Wow, that's
because
incredible.
they're actually it's like doing incantations.
Hmm.
You're not
Hmm.
saying I am a billionaire, but you're saying things that are
Right, right.
actually, that you actually subconsciously know are true. But it's like smiling. You can't smile at yourself or smile at somebody else without having some glimmer of happiness.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so it's one of those things that you can rewire it. Yes, like I said, there are people, chemically wise,
Hmm.
they're going to be in close to that state, but you can always work through it, which is, same thing with burnout. Everybody's going to have different
Hmm.
levels of burnout every single day. It's a matter of whether you want to
Hmm.
dig down into that dark one. So
Yeah.
Jen, that kind of leads us into the next stuff. And the next question I
Hmm.
have for you. I'm a why guy. I like to know people's why.
Mm.
I'm just about done. Actually, I've been doing this for a lot longer than I've been reading the book, but I just about finished the Simon Sinek's Start With Why.
Start
And
with why, yes.
and I've been preaching this stuff for probably about 2 years before I even picked that book up.
Mm, yeah.
But your why is so important to keep you driving through the hard times and the easy times. So, and I like to ask this question for everybody that's on that I interview, that's on the show, because everybody has different ones, and some know it, some don't. So we help them find it. But what do you believe your why is that gets you through the easy times, makes them easier, and also the hard ones, so you keep going?
Mm. Yeah, my why that keeps me going and what I do is because I have gone through the bad times, and I know that like I can help people who are going through that. I have the ability to impact people's lives for the better, and if I can do that, like that means the world to me, right? To make the place to make this world a better place is like inconceivable to me. Like I don't have words for the feeling that you can get when someone tells you like that they feel better when they come to you in a bad place and that they feel better. Like that is why we're here, right? We are humans. We are people of social. We are social creatures. We need other people, and then if we can uplift people around us, then that makes the world a better place. Which means that whatever we had gone through, whatever traumas that we had, hopefully that won't keep happening,
Yeah.
right? And I think at the end of the day, like people who are in personal development, they're trying to heal this inner child, they're trying to heal all this trauma that's happened in the past and grow from it. And if we can make the world a safer, happier place, then that means that less people have to go through whatever that we have gone through.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've got a similar why as mine. My why is I don't want anybody else to be in the pain that I've experienced or seen. And if they're there, I want
Mhm.
to help them out of it. And so in turn, obviously creating more happiness, but it's about preventing or getting them through that pain. And mine stems all the way back. And I believe most people stem all the way back to their childhood, some sort of incidents that
Yeah.
happened. Mine was seeing they weren't nasty fights, but just seeing my parents fight and wanting to
Mhm.
always stop it, seeing people get bullied and always wanting to stop it,
Mhm.
stopping that kind of pain. And so, yeah, it's quite interesting. Where do you believe yours stems from?
Um, oh my God. I mean, going back to childhood, like, sure, but for me, I think it was just seeing the lack of boundaries and lack of self-care that I had that led me to being in toxic relationships, being sexually assaulted and not knowing what to do about it. just like this intense like feeling that like life isn't for me. Like I am just not cut out to live. Like life would be so much easier if I was just dead, which is an oxymoron because I'm like I wouldn't be alive. But that feeling of just like there's no future. Like I just could not comprehend the future. I could not comprehend a life that was worth living.
Yeah.
And I think that for me is like probably where it stems from is like I got out of that. Like that's insane. That's literally giving someone a new life, right? So
So if somebody's struggling to find their why, what would be your advice for helping them figure it out?
oh, just try. Just like literally okay, don't try. Go do something. Like literally anything. I heard this the other day from Jay Shetty's podcast On Purpose, which is by far like my like favorite podcast. Like I listen to it religiously. And he was saying, just like clothes, right? Try it on. Try on your purpose, right? You don't have to have one purpose that lasts you for your whole life. You don't have to have just one either. You can have multiple and you can always change it. But you don't know if it's right for you unless you try. So don't put so much pressure on like you have to find your one purpose and this is what it's going to be. Just find whatever brings you joy, or find what makes you cry, right? Like whatever like makes you cry is a really good place to start because this is pain. Then if there's pain, then there's healing that can be done. So just try to do something for whatever purpose you think that you have. And if it's different, like change it. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah. Those are some good words. I believe that a why and purpose are slightly different, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
why is something that's ingrained in you from my belief and from what I've seen from doing lots of like work with clients. Your why stems from when you're a kid, but your purpose is what you apply your why to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Because your why, like my why, is I want to create less pain in the world. But my purpose is to do it towards law enforcement and future and first responders and help them mentally and physically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And there's always ways to expand it. There's always ways to like change it for people. Like if you want to make the world a better place, who's to say that you can't like start with cleaning up the environment first, right? And then going into personal development and stuff,
Yeah,
right? Like you can
exactly.
do you
You can
can do
do
it in so
anything you
many
want.
different avenues. Yeah, purposes are just avenues, right? They're just roads that you choose to take.
Yeah, exactly. So, Jen, tell us real quick about what it is. I know you've mentioned a little bit earlier on, but what it is specifically that you do and how you help your clients.
Yeah. So as a holistic health coach, I help people create sustainable self-care routines. And this starts from, the simple little wins. So I call them little wins. They're tiny stepping stones. Think of the question, what's the smallest step that you can take to get to where you want to be? Right. And I drill in through a 12-week program. It's called the Find Your Freedom Program. You can find out about it on my site at jensui.com/coaching. And then in this 12-week,
That link will be in the description down below as well for everybody.
yeah, and so through this program, we figure out what is it that you exactly want. And I think that's the first initial step that's really important is for people to actually take the time to reflect on what is it that you really want, right? Like, is it that you want to lose weight or is it something else? Is it that you actually want to find more confidence in yourself? Is it that you've been neglecting yourself? You have been so out of tune with your mind and body that you actually want to learn how to reconnect with your mind and body. And so starting with that and then figuring out what are the small stepping stones to get to where you want to be to create a sustainable life, right? So it's not about the quick fix. It's not a 21-day detox at 5 days to a flat belly program. It is sustainable change that will last you a lifetime and change the way that you view the world and view yourself.
Awesome. I like that. It's very much in tune with what I'm doing, just with your twist on it, which is wicked from your experiences. So if you feel like you're resonating with Jen, hit the link down in the description down below. Go have a look at her website. I had a look at it before. It looks pretty phenomenal, and she's getting lots of good results for lots of different people. So last question I have for you, Jen, is what is the number one thing you would tell viewers to help them prevent or counter burnout?
just take the time for yourself. That is definitely the number one thing is you just have to extend self-compassion to yourself to actually be the one to wish yourself well in this, to stop um, overextending yourself and fill up your cup. Ask yourself, how are you actually doing? And allow the space to feel, to be kind to yourself, and give yourself as much time as you need to recover. Do the things that you think are unproductive or unworthy, like watching TV or reading a book. Just take the time to recover.
Take the time. The
Mhm.
number one thing, take the time. Awesome, Jen. Well, thank you very much. Do you have any last words that you want to add?
No, that's pretty much everything. I do have a few resources that I think maybe will your viewers would find helpful in order to help fight burnout, practice self-care. The first being books, specifically this book called The Things That You Can See Only When You Slow Down.
Yeah.
The subtitle is How to Be Calm in a Busy World, and this is by Heyman Sunam. He's a Buddhist philosopher or Buddhist monk and
Awesome.
teacher. Incredible book. Literally helped me pull myself out of depression. Was like that catalyst for it. Helped me see things so differently. So definitely check out that book. And then The Four Agreements by Don Luis Miguel. I personally am not religious. It's kind of a religious book, but just ignore those parts. Great lessons in there. And yeah, start meditating, even just like deep breaths. Just start with a deep breath. A box breath is 4 counts of an inhale, hold for 4 counts, exhale for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts. Like that one simple thing, just do it right now and you'll feel
In the
better.
tactical world, it's called tactical breathing, and it's very, very, very effective. I've done it for years.
Hmm.
It is literally one of the number one things I teach my clients, even in fitness, is box
Yeah,
is
yeah.
calms your ass down. It can actually slow things down in high stressful situations if you train yourself into it. And it's a
Mhm.
habit that you retract back to. It can actually slow things down. It's like those counts where you hear about the military guys saying they could anticipate what the enemy was going to do before they even did it. It's because
Mhm.
their heart rate was slow. So they had adrenaline running, but their heart rate was still so slow and their breathing was so
Mhm.
under control they could actually see things clearly instead of having the red haze, as we call it, where you get the tunnel vision.
Wow. Yeah, I love that for sure.
Just a
100.
little insight
Yeah.
and information for you on box breathing.
Yeah, yeah. There's also breathwork practitioners who like, if someone wants to really deepen just like using breathwork, just breathing to help them calm down is like that's a good avenue too.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks, Jen. And remember, everybody, this is Fight the Burnout. We're all about talking to people from all around the world, all different industries, experiences, pasts, so that we can actually help you get the tools from different people. A lot of these tools, if you really look at them, they're very similar, but they're given to you in different ways from different experiences. So you'll learn them in different ways. So if you are struggling, if you are feeling challenged with things and you want some more assistance, either reach out to Jen at our website down below, or even reach out to us at Fight the Burnout Podcast at gmail.com. We're all about helping you perform at your top level. And in order to perform at your top level, you need to be taking care of yourself and not be getting burned out every day. So till next time, we love you. Remember, our motto is train hard, test easy. It's both physically and mentally because we get tested every single day and we want life to be easy so that we're not burning out all the time. Love you all, and we'll talk soon.